Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to week 2 of the 2023 fantasy season. Hopefully you got a chance to watch the video cast last week, or at least listen in to the podcast. Today we're going to go over injuries. We're going to look at our studs and duds, take a little look at the Thursday night game, and our loser of the week.
Yep.
Compliments of one of my leagues. So let's start with some injuries. Obviously, as many people are aware, and I don't think we've hidden it that we're Packer fans, and a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers was traded to the Jets, and subsequently on his fourth play from scrimmage tore his Achilles. So he is out for the season, and those of us Packer fans are unhappy that he's not going to get 65% of his snaps in, because our first round draft pick just went to a second round from them. He is out for the season. The impact is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say they can't win a Super Bowl, but I'm guessing
Zach Wilson.
Right, I'm guessing they won't. There are some quarterbacks out there. Kaepernick wants back in. Wants to play for the Jets.
See if the owners let him.
Yeah. Rumor has it that Saleh said that he's going to continue on with Zach Wilson. Not sure that that's his best play. There are other people out there. Carson Wentz is available.
Yep, I've heard somebody on one of the big actual shows on TV. I forget his name. It's escaping me right now, but he brought up Jameis Winston.
Yep.
Calling up New Orleans, and then calling up Indy for like Gardner Minshew.
I've also heard Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
I've also heard try and lure
Tom Brady.
TB12 out.
Yeah, that was, I think Shannon was on First Take today saying that he'd call Tom right away, because Tom's got a couple of commercials out there, teasing, I mean, it's truly just a tease.
It is,
for a commercial,
and
but
I mean, you have to remember that I believe even though he's injured, that entire contract counts against, because he's still one of the top, whatever, 51 or whatever contracts.
Yep.
So I doubt they have a whole lot of spending room.
Flexibility. Yeah, I mean, I touched on, like we said, a lot of the implications. I think that takes Garrett Wilson. A lot of people were, listening to some other podcasts and stuff. There was the one guy said he had been actively, when a push came to shove, taking Garrett Wilson over the likes of even like Devontae Adams, stuff like that, just based on pure upside, being the number one for Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson is not going to be that as long as Zach Wilson's the quarterback. So I mean, he's still playable. Still fine,
and the touchdown that came.
Oh, that was a crazy.
That was Garrett Wilson taking a bad pass, slapping it back toward himself, juggling it on his back, and making a catch.
That's
truly
what he's
amazing.
Going to have to do to stay
relevant.
Well, just more than relevant. I think he'll still be relevant because he's the top guy there, but it's going to be tough for a little bit. I think for everybody except Breece Hall, who was really good last night.
Yep, agreed. Next up, J.K. Dobbins out for the season.
That's just
torn Achilles.
Yeah, tough break for J.K. Dobbins, who was looking really good in that game up until that injury, and that's a guy who just can't stay healthy.
No.
A lot of people out there, from what I've been seeing, are like, at this point, he should just try and save his health, what he's got left, and call it quits. Because I doubt it's tough with all the injuries, especially leg and lower body injuries he's had.
Right.
Being a running back with the short, career life they have in general, to now have an Achilles on top of that, which is a injury you can come back with. Saw Deonta Foreman last year have some good weeks in Carolina. He was that was like his second year removed from the Achilles, I think. So it's something he could come back with, but he's definitely not going to be a workhorse running back ever again.
Right. So. Next up, and I wanted to say, if you need a running back, obviously Gus Edwards would be a great pickup there.
Yep. Sorry, I've been interrupted again. They elevated old buddy of ours from Wisconsin, Melvin Gordon from the practice squad. So I'm sure he'll mix in. It's going to be a nightmare for that backfield.
I don't think that I don't think I'd still want anyone from that backfield.
Yep.
Next up, Greg Dulcich, leg injury. You said that you heard that he might be out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I just heard it on the way over here, actually, that they're thinking a couple weeks for him. They've got a couple people there. I think if you ever wanted to get involved in a Denver receiving option other than Cortland Sutton right now, they did bring Adam Troutman in from New Orleans, who had some flashes in New Orleans, but they also were using him really stupid. He was running a lot of flats and little kind of routes where you just kind of squeak out a little bit as a check down. So interesting to see. I mean, that Denver passing attack is looking pretty thin right now.
Right. Next up, Aaron Jones, hamstring issue. He pulled up a little bit.
Yeah.
He's saying that he caught it before it's more of a tweak.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go into the locker room, I don't think, which was a good sign.
He went up the...
yeah. But, so it didn't seem like it was that bad, unlike, somebody who will bring up in a little bit like Deontay Johnson looked like he was torn muscle, ripped right off the bone kind of injury. Yeah, I agree. Aaron Jones, it looked like just a little tweak. After that touchdown, we were comfortably in the lead over the Bears, so he didn't have to go back in. There was no reason for him to go back in anyways.
By the way, it appears that ownership did transfer.
Transferred. Yep. That transaction was completed.
Now Rodgers being gone, it doesn't matter if Rodgers owns them. It reverted back to the Packers.
Yep.
Next up is Jakobi Meyers. Concussion. He's in the protocol. Here is... First of all, here's my take on it. I wish the league would institute a penalty whereby because didn't the guy get penalized for hitting with, I believe there was a penalty on it.
I didn't see the exact play where he got hit.
I did, and he got smoked.
Yeah.
Helmet to helmet. He was unconscious for a while. Medical staff came out, still unconscious. It's one of those where my thought process is, if you do something like that and are flagged for a concussive hit, you're automatically out of the game and out, not able to play. You are out as long as that player is.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to get a lot of people that would say, well, that's a little too much. No, stop leading with the crown of your helmet and hitting people in the freaking head.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see the play, so I can't really comment on it. But, just for potential time missed by Jakobi Meyers, if he was unconscious, it kind of reminds me of Chris Olave last season. He had a game where he went to, it was like an end zone, target in the end zone. He came down and hit and kind of went limp for a second, and he missed the next week.
Right.
And we saw that with a couple other players too, where even if they cleared, because of all the stuff that happened with Tua last year, they held him out, for that next week. So it'll be interesting. This might be our first case to see if that's how they're going to handle that again this season, with the rising, steady rising concerns of, the players, brains and mental health and all that stuff. So.
Yep. Next up, Evan Hull, knee injury. He was placed on IR, or was going to be placed on IR. So there's a new guy in town.
Yeah, Zach Moss.
No.
Or did they sign?
No. Isn't it Deion?
Oh, you mean the guy who fumbled twice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deion Jackson?
Yeah, Deion Jackson.
Yeah. They're expecting he's going to be the main ball carrier there.
Yeah. Well, he fumbled twice. He looked horrible in that game. And
this week was a week of horrible.
Yeah, it was week one. This was a bad week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen generally you see players putting up monster numbers on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the rain seemed to impact at least a few games. There in the Dallas Giants game, weather played a factor, and people just looked. I mean, Burrow, partly the weather, partly the having not played practice.
A little rust, but yeah, the Indy backfield is a mess too. Oz and I were just talking beforehand. Said I think JT was going to do a physical and pass today. It sounded like,
but he still has 3 more weeks that he has to miss.
Yes, he has those 3 weeks. So I think as soon as his word comes out that he did in fact pass his physical, I think trade talks are going to start heating up again for some of these teams.
With who? Baltimore?
Could be.
Maybe get a real running back.
Yeah, well, from what we heard, Green Bay kicking the tires. The Colts wanted Christian Watson for JT.
Yeah, and they wanted Waddle from
Miami. I mean, I think that was Irsay being Jim Irsay, but Zach Moss, I think, is going to be back this week, is what they're thinking, and I think with a horrible performance by Jackson, Zach Moss is probably going to be the primary this week, but it's still not somebody that I'd be overly enthused to pick up on the waiver wire.
Yeah, well, in a 16-team, 2 running back team,
you got to do what you got to do.
Pat Freiermuth, chest injury. It's unknown as to how long he may be out. It didn't, they didn't give a whole lot of specifics. So
yeah, I mean, he got a touchdown this week, but the Steelers just got waxed by the 49ers, so it really didn't matter.
Right. Deontay Johnson, hamstring. You said it looked bad.
Yeah, sounds like a couple weeks for sure.
Well, if it was off the bone or if it was even a major pull.
Yeah, I think he avoided any tears, but it was like I said, the way he went down grabbing at it and looked like he was in a lot of pain, it looked really bad. So I think they have come out and said a couple weeks. Like I said, that'll be interesting too. You had George Pickens, who was not happy on the sideline yet again in that game because they were getting shellacked. You had Allen Robinson, surprisingly, actually had quite a few targets, like 5 catches, went over 50 yards.
Okay.
Potential waiver target if you absolutely need to, but no.
Yep. Last one is Austin Eckler.
Yeah, kind of came.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it. Ankle injury. He apparently is listed as questionable for this week, right as of right now.
Yeah,
that can easily change. It's only Tuesday, so. Next up, we've got our studs. These are based on the scoring in CBS. Pretty much a standard format, no PPR. So Tyreek Hill was 23.39 points over projected.
Yeah.
11 catches on 15 targets.
Crazy.
215 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep. I think that's the highest week 1 points scored since Sammy Watkins in 2019. That first week I think he had like 3 touchdowns and like $150 or something like that for the Chiefs. So.
Sammy who?
Yeah, Sammy Watkins. Yeah.
Great career. Tyreek is obviously a favorite target of Tua, mainly because he's so darn fast.
Yeah.
I mean, he seems to be completely covered, and all of a sudden he's open.
Mm-hmm.
So do I see him beating projections by over 23?
Not that much,
on a weekly basis. I also looked at some of the projections, and they were really low.
A lot of them were pretty low this week. I mean, you had, for instance, I had, Stephon Diggs going against the Jets. I know the Jets are probably top 5 defense, but, going in, they had him projected only at like 15 points.
And that's in PPR.
Yeah, that's a full PPR.
Yeah,
So
that's
there
a
were
ridiculous
some weird projections this week. So.
Next up, Brandon Ayuk. Plus 18.39. He had 8 targets, 8 catches, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Interesting when Christian McCaffrey goes off like he did, to see Brandon Ayuk also go off like that.
Yeah, well, I think it was just, again, result, they just beat the absolute crap out of the Steelers.
But they stopped trying pretty much in the they let Pittsburgh back in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy looked really good.
Purdy looked Purdy.
Yeah, he did. He looked Purdy. So again, like we talked about before the season started, I think it's going to be a little bit of which San Francisco receiver is it going to be this week?
Right.
Next week it could be George Kittle.
Could be Debo.
Debo, yes.
Right.
Or it could be just a straight up 100% Christian McCaffrey game.
Right.
Even though he was amazing this week too.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, Ayuk looked good. With Shanahan, you gotta kind of earn a stat line like that, and I think he did. There was a lot of plays you saw Ayuk downfield. There was one where he sprinted and laid a dude out for, I think it was the McCaffrey touchdown.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, just sold out. Teammate. Full team play there, went and blocked, and I think that'll go quite a ways with Shanahan. So
Agreed.
I think Ayuk's going to be probably the most consistent receiving option out of the 49ers this season.
Agreed. Next up, Tyler Algier. No, excuse me. Next up, the aforementioned injured player, Jacoby Myers. Plus 15.6. He had 9 catches on 10 targets, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked like more of their offense than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, and Jacoby Myers is a guy from New England who got quite a few targets, but just not a lot of yardage.
Right.
I mean, he had, 81 yards?
Yep.
So decent yardage, and then the 2 touchdowns, and then the concussion. So, but I think, with Myers, he's a little more in Garoppolo's comfort zone for downfield throwing, where Devontae gets a little far out, I think. So,
could be. I mean, we saw last year 24th or 25th in the league in passes downfield, which could impact, like we said, could impact Devontae Adams.
Yep.
Next up, Tyler Algier, plus 15.2. He had 3 rushes. No, excuse me. He had 3 targets, 3 catches, 19 yards. He had 15 rushes for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. The Falcons are... This is going to be probably pretty common. Maybe obviously not the 2 touchdowns, but him and Bijan, as
and Bijan looked great.
Bijan was amazing.
I mean, he averaged like 12 yards a carry.
Yeah, really good. So I mean, you'll get, obviously you won't get this week out of Algier every year,
right.
But I think, like if you're in my situation where I have Derrick Henry as my number 1, and if I had grabbed Algier late in the draft, I would be totally fine with throwing him as my RB2 for rest of season.
Yeah.
Because I truly think the Falcons, they know that Desmond Ridder's not it. You got Drake London, who had 0 points, goosed you. Kyle Pitts had like 2 catches for like 40 yards or 44 yards or something like that. So they only threw it 18 times in that game. So the Falcons, if they're going to win games and stay in games, they're going to run the ball.
Right.
So, and
did you watch any of that game?
50 times. I just every now and then. I did not watch a ton of it, no.
Bijan's touchdown was amazing.
Yeah.
He got...
Is that the one where
he juked a guy
out in the flat a little bit?
Yeah, little flat pass.
3 guys miss.
First he kind of jumped back and that guy just whiffed, and then he went right between 2 and scored. I mean, it was pretty. Next up, we have Aaron Jones, plus 14.59, your running back pick of the week.
Mm-hmm.
He was 2 catches on 4 targets for 86 yards and a touchdown. 9 rushes, 41 yards, and another touchdown.
Yeah. Aaron Jones, line right there.
But you're talking 13 targets.
Yeah, well, like I said, that was why he was my pick.
But I mean, only 13 touches. I mean, 11 touches,
Yep.
13 overall plays his way, and he still comes out with it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I mean. He only rushed it 9 times.
Yeah.
But he was, they got what they needed out of him.
Yeah, and like I said, when Aaron Jones goes... and not nuclear, but has a really good game, that's kind of a typical thing where he's super efficient, and then he does, like I said, that receiving touchdown, was big.
Yeah.
like I said, that was kind of my pick. Is just they needed those plays out of him, and that's what they got.
Right.
Granted, the Bears just looked flat and didn't play very well, so that whole team kind of fell apart and allowed Aaron Jones to take advantage.
Yep. On the whole idea of studs, I wanted to look at something. I wanted to look at the targets for this week, for wide receiver, for any player on the receiving end, and Puka Nacua, 15.
Crazy.
Tyreek, 15.
Yep.
Diggs, 13. DeAndre Hopkins, 13.
Yep.
12 for Jefferson.
Yep.
Nico Collins, 11 targets.
Interesting.
Pittman, 11. Kendrick Bourne.
Yep.
And Ridley, 11.
Yeah.
Ridley was a stud.
Yeah, he looked really good. I think that the two surprising ones, at least the two surprising ones for me, are obviously Puka. Came out of nowhere, probably the hottest waiver wire ad until Cooper Kupp comes back. But the other one for me,
but even so, is Van Jefferson better than him?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point too, now the Rams know what Van Jefferson is, which is he's not going to live up to what
a wasted pit draft pick.
Yeah. So, and then the other one that actually kind of surprised me was DeAndre Hopkins, 13 targets.
Yeah.
Especially in a game where they were in it most of the time. In the first half, Derrick Henry's getting work, and then the second half, they didn't run the ball. Right. They were just throwing it, passing. So it was interesting that was kind of the way that the Titans went. Tannehill did not look very good. Had a chance to go in and win it or tie it or whatever, and he looked slow, and his reads were really slow. But for taking DeAndre Hopkins a little later, I think he's going to end up being very good value.
Yep. So let's move on to our duds. First of all, we had an injured player, Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he was 0 for 1 passing. He was minus 18.29 points, so he scored a 0.
Yep.
And like we said, he's out for the season, so it's going to be someone else doing that. Not being negative 18.29, but next up was Joe Burrow, minus 15.2, 14 of 31 for 82 yards. 1 run for minus 1 yards.
Yeah, as a Joe Burrow manager, I'm going to chalk that one up to the weather and him not practicing for the 2 or 3 weeks with the calf strain. It was bad. It was bad, especially after they gave him all that money. But like I said, I'm just going to chalk that up to, weather, rust. Don't panic on T. Higgins.
No.
Don't panic on anybody for the Bengals.
Actually, I'm going to try and trade for T.
That too, yeah. One, you get somebody in there that's like, oh, God, T. Higgins
can't do anything. Jeez.
Yeah, he gave me a goose. He's a good trade target. But yeah.
Next up, Daniel Jones, minus 14.29. He was 15 of 28 for 104 yards, 2 interceptions, 13 rushes for 43 yards.
Yeah,
which is kind of what you expect.
Yeah.
Him running the ball.
Yep. Yeah. But they were trying to find anything they could against that Dallas defense, and that was kind of rainy too.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I would, I wouldn't panic, but I definitely would be maybe looking for, if you got Daniel Jones.
I might be playing Brock Purdy.
Yeah, you might have to. Yeah, I would.
I wish I would have.
Yeah.
I would have won my game.
Sure.
Speaking of which, we'll get back to that after we do our duds. Next up, we have, and notice the pattern, Lamar Jackson. Minus 13.7, 17 of 22 for 169 yards and an interception. Only 6 rushes for 38 yards.
Yeah, the rushing yardage is a little concerning that he only had the 30-something yards. Still 6 rushes. That's pretty good. I think any other week,
Yeah, but when Daniel Jones runs 13 times with Barkley, and Jackson runs 6 times with Dobbins injured and nobody to run the ball.
Yeah, I think that stat line reflects more that that Lamar needs Mark Andrews,
He
just
does.
like Patrick Mahomes needs Kelsey out there.
Yep.
I think if Andrews comes back this week, he's going to probably see double-digit targets. I have a feeling. And then it'll be interesting to see, like I said, probably get a three-headed. I wouldn't even call it a monster because it's a monster.
No.
It's just a comedian.
Well, no, it
straight up
actually
comedian.
becomes a four-headed rushing monster
Yeah.
because, Jackson will probably take half of the rushes and half the yards.
Yeah.
So does it make sense to go out and pick up Gus Edwards? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, that's up to you.
Yep.
This one is kind of surprising. Dak Prescott, minus 10.7. They didn't need him. 13 of 24 passing, which is pretty bad. 143 yards, one rush for 6 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's one I would again chalk up just to their defense was
They were up by
lights out.
by so many
didn't have
points.
to do anything,
Right.
Which like I had a gripe with McCarthy for keeping in Tony Pollard in when they're up like 32-0 and
Give
he
it to
scores the
Turbin.
second touchdown. Yeah, well they did. I mean, he did score a touchdown.
He did, but
They got that second touchdown out of, and I was playing against Pollard, so
of course.
Yeah.
So we did forget to go over how we did this week. I won one of my 3 games this week. It was pretty bad when you've got Daniel Jones and he doesn't do anything, and Tyler Lockett got me a point.
Did he leave the game too? I thought I heard.
He did. They took him out to have him evaluated for a concussion, but he came back in.
Okay. Right.
So no concussion, obviously, but he did miss some
I
time
think
from the
Gino
game.
left too. I think Gino got a little banged up for a little bit too. So that Seattle game was an interesting one too. Gino was not good either during that. But,
and that's going to be interesting going forward. He's never had a good year other than last year. Did he overplay? Did he? It's hard to tell. Yep. So I went 1-2. Not too happy, and I didn't win the one that I won very handily. So not overly impressed with myself so far this year.
Yeah. I went plane going over or something.
Yep.
Yeah. So I went. Won 2 of my matchups, lost 1. Lost the one really bad. So it's a super flex dynasty, and I had Rodgers as my second quarterback.
That'll kill you.
Yep. Second one, another dynasty league, actually playing Isaac. Blew him out.
He had
Rodgers
Rodgers
in that league, so
not like that would have made a difference in that league.
Yeah, no, like I said, that.
I mean, I had Daniel Jones in that one too.
Yeah,
so
and then squeaked out a 1.5 point win, thanks to Stephon Diggs and the Jets returning that punt in overtime. Because I went in up the 1.5 points into overtime. I'm like, all right, if I can get like 1 or 2 more catches out of Diggs and they don't score and the Jets come down and kick like a 35-yard field goal, I should still win. And then they go 3 and out because for whatever reason in overtime they went, let's see, we targeted Diggs on every pass in our 2-minute drill, got down the field to kick a field goal.
Let's go a different way.
Let's do something else in overtime here.
Try something new.
So that, and like I said, I was like, am I going to lose on I thought I was going to lose on like a 50-yard Zerline kick, but they walked off with a punt return.
Yep.
Trying not to yell so that I didn't wake up the kid.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's go to our outlook for the Thursday night football game. Minnesota at Philly. Minnesota did not look good, losing to Tampa Bay. Philly did not look that good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's one of those kind of like what we were talking about where, the Dolphins play, or the Dolphins always played the Patriots really tough. Or Green Bay and the Lions. The Lions always played Green Bay really good, even when they had bad teams.
Right.
I think that's kind of the same going on there. It was just a weird thing. I think that game was a little rainy as well. But yeah, same thing. And Jalen Hurts looked a little weird. I don't know. Did you watch any of that game?
I did not.
He would scramble and run, and he was taking his slides or sliding or whatever, like super early, like way before the defender was like close to him. So I don't know if they're like, just don't get hurt, this season, take it a little easy. But yeah, that one was an interesting game as well because they got up 16 points super fast.
I watched so many games, and like the Bills game last night.
Yeah.
Quarterback
Josh
Allen said that he wanted to be careful, watch out. He threw 3 picks to the same guy who earned a $250,000 bonus.
Well, welcome
because of that.
I'd text him and be like, I want 10%.
Yeah, and then a fumble.
Yeah.
I get that you misplayed it, then fall on the ball because he looked like. He was just bad.
Wanted to play safe, do all that, but did you see he was 5 yards away from gaining a first down earlier in the game? And he tried to hurdle the guy, and it's like, what?
Well, and then there was a play where he should have run,
and
he tried to throw a pass, and maybe there was a pick there.
Yeah, I think that was. He had the first down. He had the first down in front of him, and he tried to force it down the field. It's like, what are you doing?
So I gave on the offensive side. Minnesota is ranked 31st, rushing, passing, second. So my guess is that, Philly wasn't overly impressive defensively. They were good.
Yeah.
But I want to say the only way that Minnesota stays in the game is throwing the ball. It's not going to be passing or running the ball.
Yep.
So I gave Madison a tick down. I gave Cousins, JJ, Addison, and Hawkinson ticks up, and I kind of left KJ Osborne where he was.
Yeah, Jordan Addison had a pretty nice touchdown this week.
He did.
Another rookie wide receiver that I'll bring up, Zay Flowers, looked really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Addison caught that touchdown, pretty involved. Justin Jefferson he's just a monster. So it doesn't, truly, minus the 1 week against Jair Alexander, truly matchup proof. Just put him in, you're going to get 25 points out of him.
It's going to be interesting when they play the Packers.
Yeah.
To see, is Jair going to tail him all the time?
Yeah.
Is he going to shut him down again? It'll be interesting because you'd think that teams might have learned something from Week 17 last year.
Yeah. But like I said, Justin Jefferson's just he is what he is. He's going to get his. Madison had a receiving touchdown too, I believe, and where he put some good effort in. I think he trucked a guy and made another move to get into the end zone. But yeah, definitely not the outcome for a Madison owner I think you were hoping for, especially against a Bucs defense that kind of same thing, kind of middle of the pack.
Right.
But the Minnesota offense, like we predicted, was going to be pretty good, and then their defense was going to be horrible.
Yeah,
so.
and their defense was horrible. Yep. Although they're ranked 8th in defense and for defense for rushing and 12th for passing, but that's because they played a pathetic.
Rachaad White was not. He was a letdown this week.
Well, the whole. I'm not a big Tampa Bay fan.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be very good. They'll be all right, but I just don't see them knocking off some of the better teams.
Yeah.
And no, I don't consider Minnesota one of the better teams because if you lose to a Tampa Bay when you've got the offense that you've got, you played poorly on defense.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't do everything you could on offense.
Yep.
Then we go to Philly, and I give Hurts an uptick. I give Gainwell and Swift an uptick. I give A.J. Brown an uptick. I give Goddard an uptick.
Can't do any worse than what Goddard did.
Right. But I think they're gonna. They have to come back and say, we have to pound the snot out of this team.
Yeah.
They are bad enough that on defense that they should put up 35 points and not have a problem.
Yeah. I think if you're Philly coming into this Thursday night, it's a get right game
right.
for the offense. you just try and limit JJ for the defense
Yep.
for Philly. But yeah, the offense you got to figure out. Gainwell looked good. He had the majority of the work.
And actually,
Yeah.
did I say Gainwell or Swift?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Because
Penny was like a healthy scratch, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I think Gainwell did get banged up a
He
little
did,
bit.
um,
So we'll see what happens.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. I was surprised that he saw 65% of the offensive plays.
Well, he's the incumbent. He's been there for.
I really thought they were bringing in
stuff,
Swift to do something.
Yeah.
And because during the draft, in fact, I took Gainwell as my 4th running back.
Mm-hmm.
And Gainwell, and all of my running backs did well.
Yeah.
But, I've got trade bait now in a 16-team league, but never expected Gainwell to have the game that he had.
Yeah,
at all.
I think coming into week 1, not as good as he did, but I think he was going to do well just because, like I said, he's the veteran on the team or whatever you want to say. He's been there, he knows the system, all that stuff.
Were you surprised that Boston Scott played instead of Penny?
That one is weird. I think. Yeah, so I don't know if there's something going on with Penny. Who knows?
Well, it was a healthy scratch.
Yeah, they brought Swift in, Swift
Right.
and Penny in with letting Miles Sanders walk.
Yeah. And if you had Gainwell and you had planned on playing Gainwell, play Gainwell.
Yeah.
Don't go make all those. Well,
Yeah.
not for me to decide.
It was weird. It's week 1.
Yep. So the last thing we've got is our loser of the week, and I actually found one in one of my leagues, and this isn't necessarily him being stupid.
Right.
It was happenstance. So in this league, you play 9 positions. You play a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, a kicker, and a defense.
Yep.
So 9 players scoring for him got him 69 points.
Nice.
His bench, which has 5 spots,
Yep.
and included Kelsey, who was out.
Out.
So you're at 4 spots.
Yeah.
A QB, a running back, a wide receiver, and a defense. And the defense only scored 7 points.
Okay.
82 points.
Dang.
Granted, the difference may or may not have helped him win because he got blown out. But you sit there and you think, how is it that your 4-player bench outscored your 9-player team active roster?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah. So
was
for that, you're the loser of the week.
Yeah, I was like in the main league for us. We had Anthony, his team. He had 85 points because he had Tyreek and the Dallas defense.
Wow.
So 85 out of his 130 or something like that came from 2. He had 1 player on his team. I think Goose was 0. And then he had like 3 other people that were sub 5, but he still ended up winning because of Tyreek Hill and the Dallas defense.
Well, and like I said, this was a really weird week.
It was.
A lot of defensive points,
Mm-hmm.
more than I would say I would expect on opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, the defenses get torched more than the offense.
Yeah, there was only, what did I hear, like 55 touchdowns this week as compared to last season. There was like 60 something, and then the season before that in week 1 there was like 80.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was just surprising to me. I watched
weather games.
Yep, I watched a lot of the games, and the play was sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
Fields were sloppy. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Hopefully it turns around. Hopefully my players and your players start playing well.
Yeah.
So
I'll squeak out a win. A win is a win. So
yeah, I know. That's why I'm feeling pretty lousy today.
Yep.
So that's all we've got for this Tuesday. I am Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.